We are pleased to welcome in a late night edition of Greg Bedard of the Boston Sports Journal as he joins us following this huge Patriots win over the Buffalo Bills. Greg, good to be with you. Thanks for joining us. What was your biggest takeaway after this seminal victory for the Patriots?
Oh, that's a really good question. I guess it would have to be, even though I think the thing that most surprised me in the game was the Patriots defense, and, we'll get to that, but Drake Maye's performance in the second half, on the road. First half was a little bit sketchy, which, sometimes those things happen. But, for him to go 13 of 14 for like 186 yards in the second half, he was 6 of 6 in the fourth quarter, has a game-winning drive now, a big one where, you turn it back over to the Bills and Josh Allen, who knows what happens. We've seen that already multiple times this year, but, just for Drake Maye to get this kind of victory this early in his career is an absolutely huge development, and he was terrific in the second half tonight.
Greg, did anything with the running backs have to do with Maye throwing the ball more? Was that part of the game plan in this one? You mentioned the first and second half differences. He was 13 of 14 in the second half, but his first half was great. 9 of 16. Did maybe Stevenson's fumble? And was Travion Henderson out early on with an ankle? It wasn't reported, but he wasn't getting reps either early on.
I am not sure exactly what was going on with Travion. There was talk that he was dinged up a little bit on the opening kickoff. But, as far as the difference between the first half and the second half, we heard both. Steph Diggs talked a lot about it, and I think Drake Maye did as well. I think, the Patriots thought they were going to get a lot more blitz, so they had, which the Bills led the league in blitz rate coming into this at like 40%, so they thought they were going to get a lot of blitz. So they had more quick game stuff, sort of, plays to catch them in the blitz, and the Bills went a different direction. They did blitz in the second half, so, they were ready for that. I don't think it had much of a difference. I think it's just the way football games go. Sometimes you get in there at halftime and you say, this isn't really working for us. And, the ground game just in general just continues to not do anything. So, what are you going to do? You're going to continue to beat your head against the wall, or are you going to, open it up a little bit? And, both teams sort of did the same thing in the second half. First half was pretty forgettable, but the second half was kind of the game that I thought we were going to get going into this. It just took a little bit longer.
Greg, complete this sentence and elaborate if you can for me. This is the biggest Patriots win since?
Mac Jones beat the Bills at Gillette. I don't know. I don't really think about these types of things. I leave this up to you sports yackers. I don't know. I don't take time to think about these things. So you guys go nuts with it.
Okay, then I'll ask you this. What do you think Drake Maye's best play was tonight? If you had to pick one, you had a bunch of dynamic plays. What was his best in your eyes?
It was shrugging off Daquan Jones and finding Stefon Diggs on a play where he should have gotten dropped for like a 10-yard sack. That was just a ridiculous play. And then he had also the other one where he rolled out and, basically him and Steph Diggs were on a playground and got a completion down to the 5-yard line. Now it only resulted in a field goal, but at the end of the day. But the play with Daquan Jones, that's a ridiculous play. And there's not many quarterbacks outside of Josh Allen that can make that play in this league. Maybe Lamar Jackson, Mahomes, but the list is short and very few.
Stefon Diggs had a huge night. He was clearly motivated playing against his former team, but you could tell on the sideline he was the motivational leader, looked like a captain out there, getting everybody focused. Everybody was focused. Was that as advertised when it came to Stefon Diggs? Clearly great player, but he looked like the leader out there tonight.
Yeah, he's been doing that every week. If you watch the sidelines carefully, I've looked over at times and seen him in the offensive line huddle, getting those guys picked up. And I think, since he's been here full time, pretty much like once training camp started, I think, in the offseason, people weren't sure what to make of him because he wasn't here that often. But everybody you talked to in Houston said He was great, and he was a leader in the wide receiver room, and he was a great teammate, and like all that stuff. And since he got here for training camp, he's been doing that. So it's great to see. I think that his legs showed a lot more juice tonight. Probably had to do with going to Buffalo, a little bit more adrenaline. I mean, he had I was just looking it up. He had 62 yards after the catch, which we hadn't really seen yet, and I think that made a big difference. People will probably be surprised to know that he played 50% of the snaps tonight and had the kind of production that he did. And I think this is something the coaches have stayed focused on, that he was never going to be like a 70-80% guy, considering his age and what he came back from. But if they can maximize, the 50 to 60% that they have him, that's the best thing for this team. And that's what you sort of saw tonight really come to fruition.
Okay, and let me ask a follow-up on Diggs, and you just said the word production. Am I being greedy, Greg, if I expect now going forward for Stefon Diggs to kind of look and act like this number one receiver that we've sort of seen the last 2 weeks?
I think so. I think, this has been really good the past couple weeks. I don't know if I would expect it. I think one thing we also have to keep in mind going forward, and this also goes for the defense, is, there's a lot of unknown about, the Patriots and what they're going to be able to do. And the more they have on film, like, for example, what Collinsworth kept talking about tonight was, allowing Maye to roll out to his right. There's a lot of teams that aren't going to let him do that in the future. And now, Stefon Diggs might get a little bit more of attention, where teams before looked at it on film and were like, well, we don't really need to worry about him. Maybe now he's a problem. And so if he gets more attention, it's going to mean other people have to do things. So, I wouldn't get too greedy there, Dundero.
Is Will Campbell becoming a star?
Who knows? Is he a star? No, he's a good player.
Okay.
What's his name? Joey Bosa is not anything to write about. I thought Will Campbell would win this matchup pretty handily. He gets some help, as you saw in sort of the Will Campbell montage. You saw a couple of running back chips. Will Campbell is doing a very nice job so far. That's as far as I'll go with it.
I'll take it.
You can go next.
I know. I'll take that.
Greg, you wrote earlier this week, Patriots offense will hold their own versus Buffalo. Can the defense? They certainly did. They gave up touchdowns in 3 out of 4 games in their first drive. They forced turnovers tonight. What was it about the defense that was different? And was it Buffalo that went away from James Cook, or was it the Patriots that basically took him out of the game?
Well, that's a question for the Bills. I was listening to Allen and McDermott before coming on here, and they were pretty pissed and pretty adamant that they just did not play well. Which is interesting. I mean, I think the second half, the Marcus Jones interception, Josh Allen, which I agreed with him. He said he made a bad pass, like that. That pass he should be leading Khalil Shakur, and the receiver probably should have sped across a little bit better. He sort of slowed down and allowed Marcus Jones to undercut him. The first half, I'll say this about the Patriots defense. I mean, that's, like I said, that's the most surprising thing in this matchup. I'll be interested to watch the film on it. I did think that they came out with a good plan, which was the first time in 5 weeks. They certainly had a better answer, for what the Bills like to do. They put more linebackers on the field. You saw Tavai out there after, Mike Vrabel actually played very coy in the pregame interview with Zoe, where Zoe asked him about Tavai, and he said, well, he can help out on special teams, and we'll see how it goes, defensively. He was obviously in the plans. The Bills are one of the best teams when it comes to multiple tight ends. They'll put 3 on the field at times. They really run well out of that. The Patriots had a good match with multiple linebackers, including Tavai. I thought that their wrinkle putting a lot of big guys on the defensive line, and that meant taking like a guy like Harold Landry out, who's had some issues in run defense of late, was a nice wrinkle. But I thought that, they just executed at a higher rate. But we also need to acknowledge that the Bills kind of shot themselves in the foot in the first half. I mean, 8 penalties. They have fumbles on 2 of their first 3 possessions. It's kind of hard to get into an offensive rhythm when you're doing all that stuff. And, the Bills were definitely complicit in this.
Apologies for bouncing around, Greg. I just want to ask about the running backs, and it's sort of an interesting situation what the Patriots may be dealing with here. We don't know exactly what's going on with Antonio Gibson and the knee. Obviously, Ramondre Stevenson fumbled once again. Is that still a problem? And I'm not convinced, personally, Travion Henderson can carry the load as an every down back. What are you doing with the running back situation if you were advising Mike Vrabel?
Well, I think they have very limited options at this point. I mean, I think, they're going to have to continue to roll with Stevenson. Hopefully maybe he found something, with his 2 touchdown runs after the fumble that he's going to get a little bit better. I mean, it did seem like he was using two arms. Of course, the fumble happened again. He had 2 hands on the ball, and then he's going down. He's bracing himself, and he takes one arm off, and the same thing happens. Like, he gets punched out. It's the same thing every time. But, I mean, they are very limited in what they can do. I mean, they can't, cut Ramondre Stevenson or even send him to the bench. It looked like Gibson, that they ruled him out as quickly as they did. Sure seems like if it's not season ending, then it's for a very long time. Mm-hmm. And so I expect a lot of running backs to be in for tryouts on Monday and Tuesday. Possibly they look to make a deal with some sort of pick swap that these teams like to do, but I do not think it's a good idea at all, and I don't think the team does either if Travion Henderson is the workhorse running back, for this team. First of all, he hasn't been very good to this point. Mm-hmm. And second of all, he's not built for it, at least not yet. And so I'd rather have the kid for all 17 games plus playoffs than worry about giving him 25 carries in one game and, against the Saints and the Titans.
Craig, this is the best I've seen the Patriots in years. I think we can all say that. Was tonight like what the ceiling could look like? I mean, I think the floor has been raised, right? At this point, you've won 2 in a row. You have New Orleans on deck. They're all winnable games here. I mean, I don't know. Seeing what Drake Maye could do tonight and the team with what they have, can they play better than they did tonight?
That's a good question. Let me pause on that for a second. But I'll say this. As far as their ceiling, no, I don't think it's there. I mean, first of all, offensively, they still can't run the ball worth a darn. And this is not relying on Drake Maye to pull plays out of his rear end is not sustainable over 17 games. I mean, as great it is, as much fun it is to watch, they need to get more back. If you want to be a real football team and win games, especially late in the season and bad weather and all that stuff, they're going to have to run the ball. They couldn't run the ball worth a damn. They averaged like 3 yards a carry tonight outside of Drake Maye. And Drake May's legs certainly helped that. And, you have to factor that in. If they can get the run game going and be more balanced, and teams have to respect the run, they're capable of a lot more. I think defensively, I still need to see a lot more. I need to see how much of this was the Bills. We've seen them against the Dolphins and who was it? The Saints, last week. They go through things like this where they sort of play with their food for a while and then they hit the afterburners. And, that almost happened tonight, but didn't. And that's good. I need to see more from the defense because I don't think there's enough on film. Like Gonzalez just came back last week. Tavai just got in the mix today. I think there's the Bills. If I'm the Bills going into this game planning, there's a lot of stuff I don't know about the Patriots and what they're going to do. And I think, Gonzalez and, man coverage and Tavai and how they're matching up things, those are sort of surprises. And the more film that there is, they might get picked apart a little bit more. But certainly this was worlds better than their defense has been in the first 4 weeks.
I understand, they're going to get the book on Drake Maye and they're going to tendencies and all those things. But let me just push a little harder on this point, Greg, because I'm interested in terms of what the expectations should become, or if we should change them. Because when you look at this schedule, I know things evolve and continuously evolve. But, I mean, at Saints, at Titans, Browns, Falcons at home, there's really two good teams at the Buccaneers and then the Bills, again, who you just beat, left on this schedule as of right now. The Ravens aren't good. The Jets aren't good. Should we change expectations based on what we saw tonight and Drake Maye's sort of ascent here in the last few weeks? Because that's the last thing. They did just pound a bad team and then beat a good team on the road.
This is another one I am going to defer to the sports talk radio guys, especially Felger and Maz.
Okay.
From 2 to 6. My expectations is pretty much where I was even after week 1 when they lost and the sky was falling and you heard some people saying, Drake Maye's not the guy and we got to go back into the draft. And, it's just, I want to see this kid get better. I want him to get more experience. I want to see this team get better, week after week. And if they do that, we'll see where they are at the end of the day. But, like I said last week, when they were 2-2 and now they're 3-2 with a road win to the Bills, they are ahead of where I thought they were. So, this is very promising. I'm not going to look down the schedule. I'm sure, Dundero, you'll go home and, dream up wins on your little
I'm going to be looking down
pillow.
that whole thing, baby. Yes.
I know. I can't wait till I hear the 13-4 prediction in the next couple of days. But, you guys certainly have fun with that. And they're ahead of schedule. They're doing well. There's a lot more that they can do. And it's going to be on this team to keep getting better. They can't go out to New Orleans next week and lay an egg against the Saints, or else all of this is for nothing.
Greg, just final thing for me. It sounds like Tony Dungy spoke to the team before the game tonight about knowing your role and commitment, etc. They seemed inspired by it. Is there like a connection between Tony Dungy, Mike Vrabel, and did you hear any of this tonight?
I did not, but I'm the last person you should ask about pregame speeches and stuff. I think this team was ready to go the entire week. I think it's convenient to be Tony Dungy talked to the team. I think Vrabel set the tone this entire week, talking about that they have a chance. This was a good gauge game. You heard Drake Maye saying the same stuff, the players saying the same stuff. I think they had the right mentality going into this. They understood the stage and the message that they could send to the league, and I think that this team was focused on that, and I thought Vrabel had them focused, and I thought they were in the right mindset no matter who talked to them on Saturday night.
All right. Greg Bedard of the Boston Sports Journal. We always appreciate. Thanks for staying up late with us, Greg, and we'll look forward to your appearance, as always, on Tuesdays with Mike and Tony.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.